Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Story, president of Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training. And my podcast is actually now in its fourth year. So we've made a big milestone change there. And my special guest today is an old friend of mine, Vincent Nelias, who is the representative director and president of Triumph here in Japan. Vincent, welcome.
Good morning.
Let's clarify. Is this the motorbike company? Which Triumph are we talking about here?
Well, maybe you can tell from the background that we are not talking motorbikes here. We are talking about lingerie. Triumph is a family company born in 1886 in Germany. And today the head office is in Switzerland. And I have the privilege to work for a family and to represent them in Japan. And it was established in Japan in 1964. So we have a long history here.
We're 63, so we're very similar, very similar. Yeah.
So, actually the Japanese market, just to give a bit of perspective for the listeners and viewers, is the Japanese market is the biggest worldwide. So Triumph has been particularly successful on the Japanese market with lingerie. And we are even considered a Japanese company by many. So we are part of the history and we are part of the walls, if I may say so. Being the biggest market in the world, in Japan, brings responsibilities to the family, of course, in Switzerland. But also we have a very important duty for Japanese consumers because we are part of their intimate lifestyle. And we sell millions of pieces of lingerie every year. Intimate apparel, bra, panties, camisole, pyjama eventually, innerwear, and that's what we do, and we do it all over Japan.
So how is it that you are here in Japan running an organization? This is not the first time for you to run an organization in Japan. We met when you were running Swarovski. But give us a bit of the backstory. How did you come to be in Japan, and how did you come to be running these big companies here?
Alors, it's 29 years I live in Japan.
Otsukare-sama deshita.
Yeah, so a bit less than you. In total, the first time I came to Japan was in 1992, and I was 24 years old. And today I'm 55.
I have to tell you don't look 55. You're looking in great shape, I'm going to tell you that.
It's my business activity that
it's making you younger, right?
Yes. So I came as a trainee. An intern for a French company in 1992, and I stayed a few months in Japan.
Was this part of that French scheme where you can do military service or you can do a type of commercial internship to be
That was the idea. But
something like that?
I already cleared my military duties at the time. Okay, so the company said, we send you a few months to Tokyo because I was in a business school specialized on the Asian markets. With a specialty on Japan. So I had some bonds, but I didn't know Japan, never came. And then in 1992, when I landed and started in Tokyo, I don't know, I had a shock. Honestly speaking, I had a shock in Narita. I remember, I felt like it's kind of coming back home. And I don't know why.
Really?
And still to this day, I can't say.
Interesting.
But it was obvious. First, at the age of 22, I was in New York. Doing an internship also, and I loved it. But I don't know, something special in Tokyo. And that was my start.
Fate.
Stayed 4 months, enjoyed every moment. Then back to France, worked a few months between my region and Paris. And in 1995, I came back to Japan with a job for a large French supermarket company. But I was just in a trading office in Tokyo. And that's how the story started.
Wow. So which large French company was that?
The name is Auchan. It's Auchan. In Spain, it's well known as Alcampo. It's a very large French supermarket company having stores in many, many countries. It's like for some other people who know better, maybe Carrefour, who at one point settled in Japan. Yeah. So it's a big supermarket company. But my job was to trade wines. And to provide wines to companies like Suntory, Mercian, Yamaya, for people living in Japan, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I did that for 3 years as a salesman,
right.
Sales manager, and then moved into
So as a sales manager, did you actually manage a sales team of Japanese
No,
team?
actually, it was a trade office. So we were dealing with high volumes. I had key accounts. I was dealing with key accounts, and we had a joint venture with a Japanese company. So my role was to visit them, every week, every month, and introduce new wines and sell them, the portfolio of wines that we had through the supermarket in France.
So what happens after that?
Well, first 3 years in this supermarket trading office, selling wines to Japanese companies, time to learn Japanese, time to get used to live in Tokyo, to make sure that the choice I had in my life was the right one. And then I moved to another French company, Pernod Ricard. It's much famous, bigger. Yeah. And I was in charge of the wine division, marketing, and I moved from sales to marketing. Pernod Ricard was a fantastic school because for alcohol and wines, and they have a strong marketing footprint in terms of expertise. So I learned a lot there.
And so was that your first occasion to start running a team here, running the marketing team? Or
Yeah, I had just one employee at the
one
time.
Employee,
I was very junior. Remember,
I
I started here. I came at the age of 26, almost 27.
Right.
And at the age of 30, I started in Pernod Ricard. I had one employee. We were dealing with the wine division. And I was very much learning like anybody in any country from the bottom.
Well, if there's only two of you, you're doing the work of 10 people together, probably.
It's kind of the spirit.
It's like just full on hard work, right?
For viewers, they know very well the brand I was dealing with. It's Jacob's Creek from Australia and Wyndham Estate. And I had also Sutter Home from California. I have different brands from different countries, and it was very exciting.
And so how many years were you there?
5 years.
5 years, okay.
Yeah, I'm usually very steady.
And in that 5-year period, did your team grow? Did you have more responsibility as a leader? Or?
The business grew, not the team.
Oh, okay.
So we basically had great achievements.
So your productivity was fantastic relative to your costs.
Exactly. The Jacob's Creek now is pretty much sold everywhere.
Everywhere.
At the time, we were just beginning, and it was a fantastic story. And I'm glad to see Jacob's Creek all over the place, in the shelves, in the restaurants in Japan.
When I came here in 79, I went to Meiji, and I still remember, the only Australian wine they had in the whole store was on the very bottom shelf, like on the floor, behind a ladder. You had to be keen to find it. And I think that was, it might have been Wyndham Estate, or it might have been Wolf Blass. Probably, something like
yes.
That. It was Wolf Blass, I think. And I thought to myself, wow, I've got a bit of a job here, but thanks to you, it's working well. And so after that, what happens then?
Alors, after this marketing experience in Pernod Ricard, I had the opportunity to join the group Richemont and the brand Cartier. And I completely shifted my career in terms of at least products, not competency, because I did marketing in Pernod Ricard. And I was in charge of the watch division for Cartier in the marketing division then. So, and I stayed almost 4 years for Cartier.
And again, this time you've got a team, someone you're actually leading? Or?
Just one, but with a much bigger business volume.
Really?
In terms of...
So again, you're doing the work of 20 people now?
I don't know. No, the job was very much to coordinate between the sales, the stores, the different divisions of the company, the PR. Make sure that the watch division in Japan for Cartier was developing. Again, I talk about Cartier in 2003. It's already 20 years, and it was also very exciting. I was very proud.
It's a great brand.
Working for a luxury company in Japan at the time where the Japan luxury market was the biggest in the world. We didn't talk about Chinese consumers at the time.
No, that's true.
And it was a fantastic experience. Very different from Pernod Ricard, but at the same time, I think one of the link through my career is passion. And I always talk about that. Because when you talk about wines, you talk to the maker, you talk to the distributors, you talk to the drinkers, to the press. Everybody is involved somehow. in how it's being made, on who is doing it, on what is behind. Watches, I found exactly the same ground. I mean, you have watchmakers, you have watch passionates, you have newspapers and websites today dedicated to watches. It's a world of passion. And it's very exciting because between the makers and the users, you have all this. You don't need to speak. You just wear, use, or drink the product. I mean, it's something special.
Yeah, I bought a nice Cartier tank Francais in Paris on my honeymoon, and I still got it. It's a beautiful watch. I enjoy it. So after Cartier, what happens?
Alors, Richemont is a big group, and with many brands. And then I moved to Van Cleef and Arpels.
Okay, we're going into the serious big money items.
Yes, and then I shift gears because I was not anymore in charge of marketing for Van Cleef & Arpels, but I was the head of sales for Japan, could be said number 2 in the organization. And
so you must have a team by this time.
I had a big team.
So how big is the team?
So Van Cleef was rather small at the time yet in Japan. We had only 17 stores. And probably the sales team I was leading was around 120 to 130.
So you've gone really from leading one person
to 120
to 120, just like that.
Yes.
So tell us about that. I mean, and I've done that too. I've been in a startup operation where there was just 2 of us, and we worked like dogs. The whole time. It was hard doing a startup, and then you get to a much larger team. There's a big transition there. So what for you was challenging about going from leading a relatively very small number of people, where you're both on the slave ship on the oars together, to actually having 120 people to look after? What was the transition like?
It's a big new challenge. It was a very, very big new challenge. And also because even if I lived for so many years in Japan, you never come to be fluent in Japanese. Or maybe some people do, but I'm not. I speak Japanese, of course, but not to the point where culturally you can get in the mind of the people you lead. You understand, you assess, but you're not fluent, and I will never be.
Well, we're working off a much smaller vocabulary than compared to our native languages for
Exactly.
a start. So you're using a lot fewer words
Exactly.
to get the idea across.
So the challenge was, of course, to lead this 120 plus employees between the stores and the office, and to be relevant for them. Because they have expertise. I came with absolutely no experience.
You're the wine guy.
I was the wine guy, then the watch guy, but moving to Van Cleef & Arpels, I needed to be in touch with the department stores. I was not anymore marketing. I was now the guy who goes to department stores to deal with where is going to be my next boutique, how big it's going to be, how can I get Van Cleef & Arpels in a better location and bigger than Bulgari or Cartier. The game. Space is limited, so you need to fight. And you do it with your Japanese team, of course, but it was very hard at the beginning, to be credible and to bring them something. And you deal with people, you don't deal with products anymore. And that was a big shift. So a big challenge.
What were some of the other challenges? I mean, in terms of, you turn up, they've been doing this their whole career, probably, and they look at you, okay.
What do you bring?
What do you bring? And then, how do you get them to recognize that you're the leader, or did you find some way to provide value for them?
And when you lead, you take risks at some point, change. So I had the vision about the stores that I wanted to get, the level of service that I wanted to bring to the team. Again, remember, in 2006, Van Cleef & Arpels was newly acquired by Richemont. We were taking our independence from the department stores. We had already a network of stores, but we were at the beginning of the true retail experience. And Van Cleef was yet very, very small in Richemont. So we had to work on the store design. We had to work on the store location. We had to work on the people in the stores. We had to work on the shop managers in the organization, and we had to work on the area managers. So basically, it was a human experience for me to give to people a vision of where we could go in terms of business, how much we could fight on the market versus.
But I think also you're coming from a marketing background
Yes.
as well. So when you're talking about store fit out or layout or location or presentation, you've got experience in that. So your eye can see things. Maybe someone who's just in a sales role may not have that same perception.
Honestly, it's totally different. Marketing, you look at the brand, the media buying, the exposure, you entertain the press, you try to increase the exposure of your products. When you come to retail, because that was my position, the head of retail, the head of sales for Van Cleef & Arpels, now you need to stimulate a team to deliver a service on targets. You need to build incentives. You need to build objectives. You need to go to the department stores to convince them that your brand is the next, and you must get a better place. It's a very different world. The world of retail is something where you put all your attention to the end user, which is the consumer. Where in the marketing, you stretch your efforts between the media to make sure that you please everybody, the sales to make sure that your products are in the right place, and you must make sure that with global you get what you need for the Japanese market. So it's quite different. The retail for me is very exciting, and actually I made my career of it.
And so what other challenges did you strike in that first big leadership job with 120 people?
Again, look at the competencies of the team, and if needed, replace or change. I'm going to give you one example. Van Cleef is in a department store in Japan. It's so attached to the traditional Japanese consumers shopping forever with the same shop manager. And the shop manager sometimes is in the store for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What I wanted to achieve is change the shop managers. Not by demoting or removing, but by swapping in the different stores. And the first reaction of the area managers and the people in the organization was to say, you can't do this.
Don't do that.
It will never work. The customers are used to the same shop manager forever.
They have their relationships established.
You will kill the business in doing so. And I said, well, I have a different perspective. What I want is to re-engineer motivation for the shop managers to be out of the box, do something different, challenge themselves in a new environment, create new customers, take the risk. And we did it. And it was very successful. But that was very challenging.
It's very bold in Japan.
It was bold.
It's very bold.
Also, what I enjoyed...
And the organization was okay with that because you're not independent, just running your own shop here. You've actually got people to report to. So when you put up, well, just by the way, I'm going to completely reinvigorate the team by moving people around. And even though they've got long established 20, 15, 10-year, 5-year relationships with constant buyers, I'm actually going to change all that and move them around. So you must have been very persuasive to convince people to take that risk.
Yeah, because there are pros and cons, obviously, but the pros were winning over the cons. At the end of the day, it's also an opportunity for the people in the stores, not just the shop manager, to reveal themselves, to take new opportunities. So it's not just moving one person, it's the overall re-engagement of the organization and give new opportunities for number 3, 4, 5 in the organization in one store to take a better role and to be more, more shiny. So it takes time. And we will talk about time today because in Japan, you don't do this overnight.
That's true.
But it's a topic we will discuss about management and change of leadership.
So what happens after?
Alors, Van Cleef & Arpels, I spent almost 6 years.
You're very consistent.
I like it. I like it very much. And this is a pattern I'm proud of and I stick to. And I want to give time to the experience to be meaningful. So Van Cleef & Arpels, almost 6 years. So meaning Richemont Group, all in all, a bit more than 9 years, 3 months, 3 years and 8 months for Cartier, and 5 years and 6 and 7 months for Van Cleef. So 9 years plus. And then Van Cleef & Arpels approached me to eventually move to France to become the managing director of the French market, the birthplace. And I didn't feel like it. I thought about it, but over 48 hours, I just refused the proposition.
Is that because your value here is very specific, and there are probably a lot of people in France who could do that job, but not that many people can do the job here? Is that the thinking?
No, it was more personal choice. It was not so much professionally. I had not enough of Japan.
Yeah, okay.
It was in 1991. In 2011. I was already 16 years in Japan. I didn't get enough.
You've been through Lehman, so you survived that.
Yeah, on the earthquake.
And the earthquake as well, yes.
in 2011. Of course, I wanted to become number one. France was an opportunity, but I didn't like the place. I was not excited by it. And then Swarovski approached me to become their managing director for the Japanese market. And I said no to Van Cleef, and I said yes to Swarovski, and I shifted from one to the other to do a complete different work. Not anymore top luxury, but consumer goods, accessories, still in the jewelry, still related to women, because Van Cleef was mostly selling to women. Cartier has a majority of women consumers. And I was very happy to move and to do something different.
So now you're the boss of the whole shop, and you get to Swarovski, right? So now you've gone from one person to 120 people to now how many people?
550 probably.
Well, tell us about that transition. How does that work?
I almost lost my job in the first 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Honestly, it was very hard.
Why?
First time I was managing an organization, complete P&L, people, you know. First time I was confronted to the global discussions because when I was number 2 of Van Cleef, I was dealing with my business here. I was not entertaining, not doing networking. I was just purely focusing on the business. Well, when you lead an organization, you have different roles and responsibilities, and it's not just looking at Japan, it's representing Japan to the world.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that as well, because it's a challenge sometimes to explain what we do in Japan.
Yeah, and why we do it that way.
And why we do it that way, and why it's different. So you heard that many, many times probably in the interviews, and it's going to come. We'll discuss this. So number 1 of Swarovski, almost lost my job in the first 6 months. Plain and simple. I came with a vision, and I probably didn't spend enough time to explain what I wanted to do. And it backfired.
There's also, you took a very bold risk, which was very successful. And sometimes we can sort of transfer that enthusiasm across, imagining I can do something similar, or I can replicate something, or I have the capacity to do something. As you say, maybe it's too early, or we probably don't understand some of the complexities. And so we're trying to template one thing to another, and that can get us into trouble. I've certainly done that and got into trouble with that too. So I'll put my hand up for that one as well. So what happened? I
will explain the trouble. So I had a probation period to start, of course, 6 months, which was then extended. So I was not very comfortable in the job. And the reason why this happened is because before entering Swarovski, 6 months prior to the decision to sign the contract, I already said no once to Swarovski, because Swarovski was looking for a sharp, big, bold expansion of the number of stores on the Japanese market. And the company had already 115 doors, which was sizable business, but wanted eventually to go to 200. And I said no to that proposition because I didn't feel the kind of guy to build that network. But then 6 months later, when I said no to Van Cleef & Arpels, Swarovski came with a proposition to say it's not anymore about expanding the network. It's about running the network. And I said, that is changing everything. Because if we talk about running the network, that's more into the scope I had in Van Cleef & Arpels, which is not to open stores every week, which is to run the organic development. And that is a very different job. It's not about put cash in the market and open stores and whatever happens. It's about making sure that every store you have is organically, financially sustainable and develop a relation with consumers and business and loyalty and so on and so forth. It's a retail business that I like. So I said yes to Swarovski, joined the organization, but the team was still on steroid, expecting stores to solve the issues on opening stores every week, because for them it was the way to achieve the budget. And when I joined, I said, no, we are not going to open new stores. We are going to run business. The doors. We're going to develop incentive for the employees. We will review the location of every place. We will close the non-profitable stores and replace with better things. We will change the design. We will, everything which is the little details, which for people is very tiny, but makes the business at the end of the day. And everything backfired. They complained that I had no ambition, no growth vision, that I didn't want to open doors. And,
When you say they complain to who?
To the global.
Straight to headquarters.
Straight to the headquarters.
And how did they do that? Is this, unsigned letters turning up? It can't be traced to who is the author. Is it, are they actually sending emails with their name on it?
I think it's emails. I didn't see the email, the content itself. What changed everything then is I had the trust from my boss, despite all the headwinds from the team in Japan.
But you were only following the policy. I mean, it's not like you decided that, okay, our policy is to open 200 stores, but I'm not going to do that because that's not what I want to do. I'm going to grow it organically. We mentioned that they actually said, okay, we're switching gears here. We did have a growth expansion plan, but now we're going to go for an organic but very sophisticated internal development and grow the business that way. So you were really following policy. Not you weren't actually rebelling against the policy.
No, not exactly following policies, because Swarovski was a fast expanding business worldwide. But the way I saw it is in Japan, and my call was to say, they agreed, of course, not to open too many new stores. And they agreed to revisit what was already opened on the profitability. But it was pretty much my decision to say, guys, we stop. We look at what we do now and we do it well.
Okay.
It's a very healthy stage in a company development. My predecessor in Swarovski was the guy who opened the doors everywhere. And it was perfect because I did get the benefit from that. My job was to run the stores. And I love that very much. So it's complementary. So if you decide also globally to appoint someone on the Japanese market, you must define precisely also what you want. What is your next 3-5 years move? Because you can't put an entrepreneur if you want a more accounting or financial profile. I mean, I'm not criticizing any profile here. It's just everything is complementary, but you need to be clear on what you want. So my problem started that I had a vision which was not aligned with the Japan team, not explained sufficiently. What
was your process of explaining? Because obviously you knew the team has been hit with steroids to expand to 200 stores, opening a store every couple of minutes type of thing. And I'm not going to do that. So I need to explain that to people. So where did the sort of shortfall come up in the explanation component?
Well, the responsibility is on me.
But what was different? When you look back, you think, well, I did a town hall or I did a number of meetings, but actually I should have done 10 town halls or 500 times more meetings, or what was the shortfall when you think back?
It's probably related to communication. I mean, there was a town hall with the key accounts all over Japan, the department stores, because Swarovski was dealing with department stores. The explanation was given to department stores, but probably the team were not sufficiently exposed to the long-term vision and to the details of the plan. And I was also probably pushing hard because I have energy and high tension and passion and we go there. This is what we're going to do. This is what I want. This is, probably didn't take enough time to build a collaborative approach where people have time to digest and make it their own and then move on, execute on your vision. And I was probably also, I don't want to go too much into details, but I had an ex-managing director of Swarovski that was still a supervisor. And, you need at one point to also clean the slate and explain and move on. But I was young, impetuous, and I probably burned some, I don't know how to say in English, but...
Burn the bridges.
Yes, exactly. A bit too fast.
Yeah, too fast. Okay, so you didn't get fired. Fortunately,
I kept my job.
Your boss had faith in you. And so how long were you at Swarovski?
6.
6, as always, a 6, right?
Yeah, and I made it actually one of the best performing organic organization for Swarovski worldwide.
And how many stores did you actually open in that 6 years?
I think I joined, I had 117. I think I left, I had 116 or 17.
Oh, okay.
But it was very different.
All right.
And we had, when I joined, we had a big flagship in Omotesando. We closed it. It was a loss-making store. But again, my predecessor was looking for brand establishment, so there are times
different
to do things that are meaningful at the moment. And there is a time where a new leader is coming with a different vision and a different process, and and it's good. And someone will replace me in Triumph some days with to do something different, which is perfectly fine.
And so at this point, what makes you decide to not keep going with that? Because you turned it, or when I say you turned around, you consolidated the growth of the business and established a very solid base. But you decided to go into this business. So what was it?
Just to close on Swarovski, the turnover increased by 25%, like for like.
Nice.
Okay, and the profit 75%.
Oh, very nice.
So it was very healthy business, and I had, for the first time as a managing director of the organization, a contract of 4 years plus 2, non-renewable after that.
Oh, non-renewable.
Yeah, and that was the company policy.
That's policy.
The only way to renew was to change the scope of responsibility. So moving to a different country or
adding Korea and China or something.
Add a country to Japan or whatever. And of course, I've been working on it. At the time, with a consulting firm, we were working on consolidating Japan and Korea together. And actually, the decision from the group was to lead Japan from Korea and not Korea from Japan.
Lead Japan from Korea?
Yes.
There's another genius idea from headquarters.
You have a long experience in Japan. I don't want to develop too much on that, but you know what it means. For Japanese people,
I know exactly what that means.
It was a shot.
It would have been.
So my contract was ending because basically I had no additional responsibility in Swarovski, and 6 years was actually perfect. My personal opinion is that 4 to 6 is fantastic. Beyond 6 is getting a bit too much.
So how many years have you been here now?
5.5. No comment.
No comment. No questions either. So you come here to Triumph, which, as you said, has been here since '64 in Japan. It's a family company. It's global. It's very successful. And different business. Now you're in the clothing business as opposed to the sort of luxury wine or
accessory
type of business, right? And different market. So again, how big was Triumph when you got here? How large was it? Much bigger,
because I took drastic decisions. When I joined the company in January 18, I had the impression that a big transformation was done already in Japan for Triumph.
This is what year are we talking about?
Triumph,
no,
2018. 2018 January.
2018 January.
When I joined.
Right.
So I left Swarovski end of January 18 and moved in January, the last day of January, in Triumph in 2018. And when I joined Triumph, I realized that the company was not healthy, financially speaking. We had tons of stores. I mean, I can talk about 1,300, 400 stores all over Japan. So it's a massive organization.
Huge.
The biggest market worldwide, but something was wrong. We were losing sales, but we were not profitable. So there was a very strong decision to go to the family and to say to the family, I'm going to cut 600 stores in Japan. We will out of 1,400.
Yeah, it's almost half, right?
Yes.
That's a big comment.
45% of the distribution is gone.
Yeah.
It's a big statement.
That's a big statement, yeah.
And we will not play the way we played so far. I'm not going to look for volume. I'm going to look for value. And this is probably what is driving my career, is how to deliver value to the consumer. What do I mean by that is we were selling millions of bra, brief, and lingerie all over the place in all Japanese channels. GMS, it's supermarkets, Ion, Ito-Yokado, for those who know Japan. Shopping malls, department stores, outlets, e-commerce, convenience stores, you name it, we were pretty much everywhere. But we ended up discounting, devaluating the brand proposition to consumers. We had stores all over. But in order to keep the stores in supermarkets, we even removed staffs. And we just left the product hanging because we wanted to keep the top line, but not delivering service. And actually, we had a huge top line, but with deficits. So my objective when I joined the organization was to shift the organization, like pretty much what happened in Swarovski, is say, guys, we will stop this volume-driven approach and we will move into delivering value to consumers.
There's also a big brand impact there too, isn't there? When you start diluting with everywhere, and it's hard. What does the brand represent?
What is the price?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's in every place.
Yes, exactly.
And you have the old collection with a new collection in every direction. You end up discounting because you have volumes all over the place, and you can't get the stock back, and so on and so forth. You know all the problems of a top line driven strategy. Very typical in Japan sometimes, where people focus on the sales. So how did I approach that? I came to the team. I'm going to give you one example. Coffee, very different. You can buy your coffee in a convenience store in Japan. The price is between 100 and 150 yen. You can go to the hotel just beside, luxury hotel, and the coffee is maybe 1,000 to 1,500 yen, 10 times. And yet, is the coffee different? The taste is probably the same, not that different. But the service is completely different. So why do you buy 10 times more coffee then? It's because you deliver something plus to the consumer. And that's exactly what I wanted to change in Triumph in Japan.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. Now, how do we go on the communication of this this time around? Because having gone through that before with Swarovski, you got the sort of flesh wounds from that experience. So you must have had a bit of a thought this time about, okay, I'm going to completely change. I'm going to get rid of 45% of the outlets, which is going to be shocking for everyone. I've got this okay from the family. They're on board with that, so that's good. Got air cover. But you don't have, the team behind this because they like the fact that they're everywhere. They feel that's somehow safe or this is where we should be. Mm-hmm. So what did you do differently this time on the communication?
It's not only on communication.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this time I took the decision. We have 16 directors in Triumph and I changed 13.
Wow.
So it's not that the people who used to work for the organization didn't do a good job. They did the job that they were eventually required to do. But it's just that my vision of delivering service to consumer and value to consumer needed people who were consumer focused, not product focused, not delivery focused, but were service in store focused. So when I say I close the stores, I close all the stores in Japan where we had also no staff, because I wanted staff in every point of sale. So we engage the consumer. And that is a different métier. It's the métier to run stores, to develop loyalty with consumers, to deliver value, to present products in a way which was different. Again, it's a complete different mindset. So I took two things. One is recruit new leaders to share the value I had. And second, to explain very well in details to the people in the organization who stayed that delivering volume was creating losses and it was not sustainable. And they could see it in the numbers. So it was easier than in Swarovski. They knew that there was a problem. The model was broken. And then you go to a model where you say, we will deliver profit on value, on service, but it's going to cost us 40, 50% of the turnover in Japan. On the stores together. But what do we want? Do we want to die with the network we have, or do we want to survive with readjusting the proposition to Japanese consumers? So it was easier.
And what was the impact there of bringing in 13 out of 16 new people from outside? They're outside?
There were some from inside, because
inside.
you need to find the balance between outside and inside. So one of the challenge, I had some notes I wanted to discuss about, but one of the challenge is to identify very quickly who in the organization has a sufficient agility to adjust to the new model. It's not just a progressive change, it's a dramatic shift.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, delivering value is not something you learn in the books. It's something you feel. It's something you have in your guts. Are you genuinely interested in consumer service? It's not just building a store. It's everything together. And the fashion advisor, we call them fashion advisors in Triumph. The fashion advisors, we have more than 2,000 full-time in Triumph today. So it's still a very big organization. But it's all the education, all the developments of skills, competencies, focus, that takes years. And that's why you need new people who believe in what you want to do and can support the change and have a consumer-centric vision, approach, guts to support this.
A lot of what you've described so far has been very much top-down. You have an idea and you're driving it from your side. Have you found anything that works well to get more bottom-up? So, for example, as you say, a lot of those people have a lot of experience. They've got good connections with their buyers, their consumers. Maybe they've got ideas. As you mentioned before, when you move the shop managers around to make some of the staff shine, you use that word to make them shine, they probably had ideas, but their shop manager probably just excluded them. But the new shop manager says, oh, well, that's an interesting idea. Let's pursue that. So you were trying to tap into that creativity which was there. Any of the things you've found work well to get into the creativity of the existing staff? I don't mean R&D people. I mean just, it could be someone in accounting, it could be someone in marketing or sales or any part of the company to help them have that chance, that shot to bring their ideas up.
Yeah, it's a very, it's one of the work we've been working on is because the organization is very large, as you said, it was first a top-down vision. And then the challenge was to cascade down in the organization the message, the vision, explain. And I come down, I come to the bottom up. I just need to close on the top down first.
Sure.
In order to have the top down message going through, I'm using also modern technologies such as, we have an e-learning platform. I post lots of videos where I explain directly to all the employees in Japan what is the intention.
In Japanese?
In Japanese. Yes, I do it in Japanese. It's not perfect, but they get the message. At least they get the emotion. So I even visited stores with the shop managers to explain why I wanted to change the store design and what I wanted from them and, spend time to in every layer of the organization to explain your vision. Make people, at least some of them, being your ambassadors, to relay, to diffuse the message in the organization. So that was one task. The bottom up is we've made people working on what means consumer service for them, on bridge between marketing, merchandising, sales, creative design, supply, IT, HR, finance. Make people in the N-2, 3, 4, 5, in the organization to work together on projects, but with a theme, which was what means consumer service for you. What would your job make a change on the consumer service? And we forced people to work transversal force. We stimulated them to work transversal and to bring to me, to the directors, to the leaders of the organization, what they would like to achieve when it comes to the consumer-centric approach. And that was the kind of bottom-up activities we've been doing, creating workshops, teams to work in parallel, make people who usually don't work together be together, sitting in the same room so they understand the other team challenge. That was some of the work we've been doing, particularly at the exit of COVID, when people started to reconnect together.
I haven't talked about engagement because in a lot of the things you described, you're driving radical change, bold changes, breakthrough or crash through or crash type of changes.
It could be a crash test at some point.
Some of them. So, but now what you're talking about is going bottom up and trying to engage people around the vision. And as you say, the numbers are easier to understand when you've got a high top line, but not the profitability, lots of product in the market, so people can get that. So any things you found in that particular circumstance with Triumph that was successful for you to get people engaged, to get behind, apart from just showing them the numbers? Anything else you used there to really help them to get behind you?
What helps me with them, I believe, is to be transparent.
Okay.
Is to tell them what I intend to do, what we need to do, what will be the consequences. There are consequences. When you close stores, you get less members in the family to work for you. You get less area managers to run the stores. It has consequences. So I was extremely transparent with everyone about what was the intention, what would be the consequences. And I think that something I like in Japan, I know Japanese people don't often open up and discuss about issues, but me, I talk to them about what the family spirit is in the company, what are the discussion I'm having with the owners. I try to be as transparent as possible about what I do and what we could do together, and I don't have hidden agenda. And I think probably they appreciate that. That's my impression, is to tell things, to say. And the numbers, I have, weekly meetings where I share all the pain points, the cost management, the issues we have eventually, and the opportunities. They know. And I share all the elements, the good and the bad. And I think that helps me to
and you
move
share
forward.
that with how many layers down?
I would say I go up to mostly all the managers area. So in Japan, you have the manager, the senior manager, I cannot say in Japanese, but the kacho, jicho, and so on. You have quite a number of layers.
A lot of hierarchy.
We have also a town hall every 3 months where we have all the employees and we give them not the fashion advisors in stores, but to the office employees. They have all the information about what we do and where we move and what was the challenge. So pretty much everybody is exposed. But on a weekly basis, it's more the managers level that are involved.
And it spills over into the trust area too, doesn't it? Because you're being transparent. You're conveying conversations you're having with the family, which normally they'd never get to hear about. So you're opening up. So I'm guessing that you're building a trust factor also in you, that I'm being honest and open with you. I've got nothing hidden here. And any other thing you've found works well to build trust?
As I said, I mean, I think I maybe repeat myself here is talking, explaining, give clarity on vision, set the goals, and tell them that it's not going to be easy, but that's what we need. I mean, just be open and transparent and communicative, and associate everyone to the discussion and the decision.
And you changed the culture too, because you've gone from a culture of top line, massive volumes to something which is more around the brand, the consumer connection, the human touch. Yep. That's a culture change. So what have you found have worked well for you in terms of getting a culture change?
I started very early to work on the e-learning platform before COVID. I'm lucky I had it on January 20. And Japan shut down in February 20. And with that tool on every smartphone, for every employees all over Japan, we had a communication link where we could explain what was happening, get their feedback. The fashion advisors were particularly exposed. Store closing, not closing, staff sick, not sick, mask with the consumers in the stores. We do fitting. We touch consumers' body. So it's very intimate. So we had this fantastic tool where we could bridge in all the organization, wherever people were working. We have also a big logistic platform in Shizuoka. So that was a fantastic opportunity to get the message pass through everywhere, but get also their feedback. We could run surveys, enquete. How do you feel? What is your problem? What do you want for the stores? Do you have enough alcohol?
You use the word e-learning, but what I'm hearing is maybe one part of that is probably a two-way communication tool, so that you can instantly let people know or pass on numbers or pass on trends or pass on direction. As opposed to when you said e-learning before, my image was the completion rate for e-learning, where you're actually learning skills, is under 4%. It's pathetically low, and a lot of companies say, hey, we've got this big e-learning platform and we're done. As a training company ourselves, right? We go, oh, really? What's the completion rate? And that's when the HR people get very quiet. They don't say anything because they know it's really low, but they don't want to admit that because they had this big flash e-learning program. So when you say e-learning, I'm thinking, okay, great. Is it actually skill you're teaching people, or using it for more as a communication platform?
It's a very good point. I think you're spot on. I speak about the e-learning platform because probably it's what people understand or can visualize. But for us, it was more a communication platform. We use this platform to have also a business recovery plan, meaning there is an earthquake somewhere in Japan. We can immediately check the status of the employees on the platform.
Right.
We use it to push modules of training, personal development.
Right.
We use it to run enquetes where the creative design team is testing products and asking the employees what they feel about it. So yes, it's not an e-learning platform. It's much
more than that.
It's much bigger than that.
Right.
But that was fantastic to deliver the message, because we come back to the message, how to build trust. It's having, I cannot visit, today we have 800 plus stores in Japan. I cannot visit them, but I can tell you that everybody sees me through video at least. It's not that I'm God here. It's just that at one point the employees needs to connect also with what is being decided by who.
So are you doing the video through the learning management system you've got, because they've got capacity to do that? Or have you got a studio and you do a full professional shoot?
iPad, iPhone.
Okay,
it's at home.
Right.
And sometimes I do the shooting on my desk. Sometimes I do the shooting here at the table.
Right.
Or I have a sofa in the office. I mean, show them what I do, where I work. And I'm asking also not just me, but the directors and the different divisions to engage as well, to show, to explain what they are doing. Because otherwise, imagine for these 2,000 plus fashion advisors all over Japan, what is their access to the company? They have just one touch point, the area manager. And how much you can believe that the area manager is going to deliver everything. It's just impossible. So having this communication platform helped us, help the fashion advisors to be more connected.
And based on your experience, you've had an amazing ride here in terms of the things you've done, very, innovative things, very bold things. And if you were asked by someone, hey, Vincent, I've been given this job in Japan, I'm going to be the president in Japan, what would be some advice you'd give me on how to be successful in Japan? What advice would you give someone?
I think what is expected from a leader is to come with a strategy. So the first thing is, what is the expected role of the person that comes on lands in Japan? Is it to a business continuity? Is it a disruption in business? Is it to close a subsidiary? What exactly is the objective there? So I think it's important that the person that comes first time in Japan comes with something to provide to the Japanese team. The second thing is, I'm looking, sorry for my notes a bit here. Spend time to explain. It's not just to come with an idea. I had ideas and not all of them worked. But take time to explain to the team what you want to achieve. Clarity.
How much time?
That could take, I would say, 6 months to 1 year.
Because when you talk about we're going to take some time to explain to people in a Western context, people are thinking in terms of minutes.
No. In Japan, Japan well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be criticizing anybody here, and this is not the objective. I think the Japan teams work as a team. They are extremely loyal, relentless, hardworking, dedicated. It's fantastic. I mean, to work here in Japan, for me, I love it. But what is so important is to start by explaining very well things. Take the time, explain, show them what is the end goal, get them to embark on the project. And if I burned the process in Swarovski and it almost cost me my job, make sure that people get the time. In Japanese, we say tane for the seed. You plant the seed and you let people reflect on the seed. And it's growing, and then it becomes their proposition, not just yours. That time is quite essential in Japan. Showing interest also of what they have done, what's happening in Japan, the culture. If you don't love Japanese food, of course, it's going to be a bit harder. If you don't love Japanese food, don't come.
Why come?
Well, you need to be part of the life here. Something also that works for me, I think, is you need to be their ambassador. What I mean by that is that I heard countless times, Japan is different. Every managers, every leaders of any organization in Japan, at one point will go to the global management and say, sorry, but Japan is different. You cannot do that. And everybody is pissed off. Because why you always say Japan is different?
Don't tell us that. We've heard that before.
We heard that before, and blah, blah, blah. The reality is that it is different. And it is different by the fact that they need people to work at the team, to deliver as a team. Takes time. But once this is done, the execution is fantastic. So be the bridge between the global and the local organization and explain to global, defend the Japan team, you'll gain trust and respect as well. You're on their side. You need to find this compromise between set your objectives and deliver, but at the same time, support, defend, associate the team to the success. And because I'm maybe in Triumph in Japan, we're 2 foreigners or 3 foreigners.
In total?
Yeah, and they're, almost...
and I met one in the hall out there, so I've almost got the in total foreigner team covered today.
So, maybe we have another French guy, but, very few nationalities here. So we're in Japan, dealing with the Japanese market, dealing with Japanese consumers, with Japanese teams. but led by global organizations. And that is something that could be sensitive. I was talking in Swarovski, Japan being managed by Korea, and you say, oof, that should be...
As soon as you said that, I was like, whoa, okay.
Okay, so, voila. So,
alarm bells going off straight away.
So this is where you need to first have a clear strategy, then explain the strategy, then be on the side of your Japanese team and support them, and give time to things to deliver, which is not always, it could be a conflicting agenda with a global organization looking for quick changes.
Should they learn Japanese?
It's a very difficult question you're asking me. Is Japanese mandatory to run a Japanese organization? I don't think so. Does it help? Yeah, obviously. But sometimes if your Japanese is not good enough, you end up being lost. So it's not a recipe for success. It's more about the attitude. It's more about how you engage your teams. Alors, the challenge is to find English speakers in the Japan organization. It's harder and harder.
Yeah. Although the government's saying that by 2033, they're planning to have 150,000 Japanese a year earn degrees overseas. And, pre-Lehman, pre-earthquake, there's about 80,000 a year going offshore, and it dropped down in the 50s and it sort of crawled back to the low 60,000s. So there's a big jump from 60,000 up to 150,000, but they have a plan to do that because you're experiencing it too. We're just not having physically enough Japanese who can speak English. And I can't remember what on earth that exam was that they had the other day, where there was some huge proportion of people who took the exam couldn't get the answer at all. It was just a total disaster when they did that test. So it's not improving. So, and this is going to be a challenge, I think, for all of us, how to get more international Japanese people can speak English. So it's
a big one. And I think if you look a few years back, I don't have the source and the precise data, but I think the ranking of Japanese society capability to speak English in Asia was at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, it's always
I think the other markets, developing markets, and I'm not talking about Philippines here because it's obvious, but Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, everybody's so much eager to speak English. And in Japan, I don't send that. No. And that gives me a headache to recruit people who not just speak English, but have competencies. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you don't recruit people because they speak English. Yeah. So this is very hard. So yes, if you speak Japanese, it's obviously better, but you don't expect someone coming for 3 years to speak Japanese. So we need to find different ways to run the business. But one way is obviously to get a N-1 team that can communicate with you. And that both language capabilities and expertise or capabilities in terms of job.
Anything else you can think of that would be good advice for them to be successful as a leader in Japan?
Well, be genuinely interested, of course, in the culture here, because we talked about food a bit earlier, but it's also visiting Japan, discover the different provinces, spend time. But honestly speaking, usually the foreigners I see coming to Japan, they love it.
Well, I'm sure you know Jerome Shushan from Godova, who's a master in Kyudo. I've spent my 50 plus years doing Japanese karate. Myself, so again, that really deep cultural interest there. But how about you? Are you a shakuhachi player, or you're doing some amazing Japanese traditional art or something like Jerome?
No. I have some hobbies that shifted also with age in Japan. I started with motorbikes.
Oh, okay.
Nothing related to Triumph here. I just enjoyed driving with Japanese people, friends all over Japan. Racing tracks, Oh,
okay, getting serious.
Being quite into it, right. And I'm glad I'm still alive today. And then I shifted to golf.
Golf.
It's a maybe number one sport, or after baseball, maybe in Japan. Yeah. And it's also very strange because I play golf for my job. It's strange to say that, but. Do we speak business when we play golf? Never.
No.
Never.
Well, I don't, because I'm always on the right-hand side of the fairway looking for my ball to try and get back to the green. I don't meet anybody.
Maybe at the lunchtime you have, you say what you do or what is your job, but you don't get into a business discussion. But the simple fact that you've been joining this group, that changes everything. It's not, you're not just coming to make business, you're part of the community. Of course, there are other sports, other activities all over Japan that people can do. For me, it was motorbikes and golf. And the golf is interesting because I went all over Japan, visiting department stores, playing with some key leaders in the organization. By the simple fact that I did it, I'm known all over Japan. And I'm not being, I don't know how to say in English,
snobby
or whatever.
Self-important.
I'm a foreigner, so it's easy to identify me first. And second, I've been visiting all over the place and meeting all these people and people
Creating
know
a
me.
human connection.
Exactly. And also with all these years in Japan, we grew up together. They took leadership roles, I took leadership roles, and we know each other. And that's the benefit of staying long in Japan as well. So be part of the community at some point so you can exchange with your Japanese team. Come with a strategy, be clear in your objectives, communicate on what you want to do, associate them, be collaborative because they want to know what's happening. They don't necessarily voice against, but you need to, it's not because they don't voice against that they agree. And they will execute well. So you need clearly to associate, spend time, make sure that the message went through. That's the advice that I could give in a very simple way, sorry.
Well, I know you prepped well for this interview today. So is there anything you'd like to add that we haven't covered that maybe have been in your prep, or maybe we covered everything and we'll wrap it up? So any last words?
I'm going to use one word, discouragement.
Discouragement, okay.
I was talking about passion earlier. Passion can push walls too hard sometimes with not the necessary careful attention. Okay, you're a bit a bull in the room. Why do I use the word discouragement? It's because often, it could be very hard to get your message through. And if you give up, you basically end the opportunity to move the needle a bit further. And even me, who speaks Japanese, I'm discouraged sometimes. Is what I'm saying understood? Is it meaningful for them? Is the message going through the organization or stops at one layer? Do I get the right feedback? Did I take the right decision? Of course, it's a leadership common question, it's self-questioning. But in Japan, sometimes we can be discouraged because it's a different world, different communication system, different culture, different approach to problems, different execution, different speed.
Speed of change is quite different too.
So if you sit and give up and say, oh my God, I will never make it, you will never make it. That's for sure.
So be discouraged, but keep going.
Yes.
Is that the message?
Yes, kind of. I'm discouraged sometimes. I can tell you, you say, is what I do really meaningful? Do I make the right move? Did I take the right decision? Of course, everybody does this, but in Japan, you don't have the spontaneity. You don't have the feedback where people tell you, oh, Vincent, stop here. I mean, that's not going to kick. You don't get that.
Don't get that, no.
It's when you're already too far engaged and that you realize that it didn't work, that then you realize it didn't work. You don't get the immediate feedback. Sometimes it could take months to get a feedback on the decision you took. And that can be painful. Something I didn't talk about. Are you familiar with NPS?
Net Promoter Score?
Yes.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
We have a few minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm genuinely interested in the consumer sentiment and working a lot on it.
Do you use VOC as well?
Voice of consumer, text mining, AI, I mean, all over the place on that. And it's what's part of the conference I gave to the Belgian Chamber of Commerce in June, explaining what I'm doing in Triumph in terms of consumer perspective. Why do I talk about NPS, Net Promoter Score? Japan tend to be the lowest score ever in the world. Actually, the benchmark is to be at minus 47. Minus 47.
It's a scale of 200, though.
It's 100. Yeah, it's minus 100 to plus 100.
100 plus, right?
So Japan
it's a 200 scale.
Japan is minus 47. That's not exactly what you expect in a net promoting score.
No.
You want your score to be positive at least.
Well, they say that 85 is the benchmark for actually having people promote. If you don't get to 85, people aren't promoting you.
Yes. So you need to be 8, 9, 10 to promote, right?
So they're minus 47 and they've got to be plus 85. So it's a long way off.
It's a long way. So why is that? What's happening in Japan that is different? And I'm talking about here consumer feedback, but it's same about 360s, the overall
engagement surveys, customer satisfaction surveys.
When I joined Triumph, we were talking about a stress survey, and I changed it to a well-being survey.
They called it a stress survey.
Yes.
Oh,
So I wanted the word already to change. Well-being survey. What do you tell me that makes things good, not just the stress? And usually the scores in Japan are a disaster, all over the place.
Yep.
And I was talking about my role being between global and Japan. It's hard to explain to global why Japan is different, why we need time, why the communication is so tedious, why the score from the employee is so bad. I mean, honestly,
what are you doing there, Vincent? They're obviously not motivated. You're doing a bad job as a leader. Look at these engagement scores.
You drop the graph. You drop the graph on the global desk, HR, owners, whatever. I mean, it's shoot at sight. It's a disaster. Well, if you stick to that, obviously, it's your journey is going to be hard. You need to explain also then to your global team why it's different, what is scoring is different. So I was talking about the NPS of Japan being minus 47. It's because Japanese consumers don't give 7, 8, or 9.
No.
For them, a good evaluation is 5 or 6, eventually 7. And the NPS start at 9.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the score is a disaster. Mexico is plus 60. France is plus 31, if I recall. Hong Kong 31, France 26, and Japan minus 47. Are we doing a lousy job in the best servicing country in the world, where service is everywhere and people care for service?
And people say Japanese service is superior to everywhere.
Everywhere. It's the best workers, they're on time, they're dedicated, loyal, and so on. And the score is absolutely lousy. It's because of the culture. And people don't tend to score satisfaction in the same way as we score satisfaction in the rest of the world.
Also, I think when you look at some of that NPS, the questions, some of the questions which are the hinge point of determining the NPS score is around things like, would you recommend Triumph as a place to work for your family and friends? Well, no Japanese is going to give a high score on that, because they think, if I recommend my friend and my family members and they hate the company,
I take a risk.
They're going to blame me. If I recommend my family or friends and the company hates them, I'm going to have trouble. So no way. So they're not going to give a high score on that. So I often wonder myself also, one thing is a translation, because it's usually coming out of English. How well is it translated? I always go back and look at the translation. You realize, hey, this translation is not quite clear.
Good for Japan, I know.
Yeah, not quite clear. And then I worry about this cultural sensitivity to taking a risk and taking personal responsibility. So I wonder, is the NPS, as it's structured globally, really applicable in Japan? And maybe you can have an NPS scoring system, but have maybe slightly different questions.
Yeah.
But I also take your point, on a scale of 0 to 10, 5.5 is a good score in Japan, and nowhere else.
I know. Just to brag a bit, you say that in English?
Go ahead.
The NPS of Triumph in June was 41.1.
Very nice.
And in July, 39.9. So we are in the 40, where normally
you're a plus.
On the plus and not the minus. Huh? We're on the plus.
Yeah, you're 80 points above the average.
Exactly. So we've been working hard on that. And that was the culture change, focus on the consumer, the benefit, developing membership, developing the fashion advisors, developing the recruitment process. You need, as a leader in Japan, somehow to be also in the micromanagement. And to look at every detail, every layer. Just a strategic mind is not enough for me in Japan. At least it worked for me. To be hands-on, to be close to your teams, to visit stores, to talk to the fashion advisors, to get the feedback, to put your words and your action in connection. We are not just here to change the consumer sentiment. We are here to do it as a team. So me, first, I need to be concerned and involved and interested. Most of my meetings are around consumer engagement.
That minus 47 number for Japan, where is that coming from?
I can name it. I had a benchmark survey from Qualtrics. Qualtrics is interested. It's a Californian company interested in this consumer feedback.
Right.
Actually, I'm using them because in addition to receive, I have a system in Japan. Here is what I call the voice of consumer, where it's not just getting a score from the consumers on the service we provide in stores, but aggregate comments.
Yes, as well.
And that's where I use text mining, because the text mining can extract from a positive comment what could be better.
Okay, right.
Okay, so the consumer could be genuinely happy by the service, yet would have expected this to be improved. And that's where the text mining comes into force. Is I receive 10,000 written comments per month from Japanese consumers.
10,000 written comments per month. Now, how are these writing something in store? Or?
Alors, they have, when they shop, they receive an email asking them to score the service they got and then drop comments.
Some comments. And they're actually taking the time to write them.
45% of the feedback has the addition of comments.
Wow.
It's huge. And they name the fashion advisor.
Wow.
They give the name of the person that serviced them.
Right.
What I'm struggling is I'd like to get the comments from the people who didn't buy.
Yeah.
Which is a different exercise.
Different exercise, yeah.
And that's where I come into the social listening. I'm interested in the social listening, what people say about Triumph in Japan. And the specific of Japan is that there is very little social listening. Maybe I'm not in my field of competency here. What do I mean? The blogs, the bloggers are limited. And we were talking about engaging your responsibility to recommend the company to a friend or a family member. Japanese consumers are not so keen in publicly disclosing their sentiment and animating a platform where people could exchange about what is good, what is bad. I don't know if you have this experience, but the social networking, from what I see, seems to be much bigger in Europe or in the US than in Japan. So when I ask for social listening, I hit a wall. I don't get much information. I would like to have women animating blogs and talking about lingerie and so on, but then they need to recommend something. And that in Japan doesn't work very well. So I receive a lot of comments from the people who did shop because they are into a closed environment where they can talk to Triumph about what they experimented.
Well, that's going to be your next challenge, to work on that social listening. But we'll probably pull it up here. Vincent, thank you very much. It's been fascinating opportunity to chat with you and hear the ups and downs in your career as well and how you've learnt the hard way. So, some things that work and don't work. So thank you for being open and sharing that. I appreciate that. I try to hide all my mistakes and don't share them with anybody, but you're very open. So kudos to you. Well done.
I'll give, sorry, before you close, I'll give a little bit more time to my experiment in Triumph. I was talking about 5.5 years. The journey is big. Yeah. So, if the mission is interesting, if the transformation is interesting, it's not about the number of years. No. It's about the achievement. Yeah. But usually, yes, it's true. I tended to stay 4 to 6 years because at the end, it's an accomplishment in that period of time, in that time frame for me. But obviously, for Triumph, I have still a lot to do. It's endless. Retail is a beauty, but there is no end.
No end. That's true. Well, thank you.
Thank you
very much. So please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.